Hello, everyone. This is Matan, and I welcome you to this masterclass and workshop called Break Free from Shame. We have 60 minutes ahead of us, and there are three important things and three important steps that we will take today. Number one, we will be talking about how to reframe shame, and I will offer 5 powerful insights. Number two, we will be doing specific process for resolving shame that I do with all my clients when I work with them one-on-one. Number three, we will finish with the self-hypnosis recording. At the end, I will offer all of us options to work with me one-on-one so you can imagine how it works. But let us jump in. Let me just start presenting and let us jump into the presentation right away. And I'm hiding this one, and let's do it. Okay, Break Free from Shame Masterclass and Workshop. 1 out of 16. At the end, it will be very clear why this is 1 out of 16 or the first out of 16 workshops. But let me just say one thing, and that is, for this year, my goal is to run these 16 workshops for 16 different topics 3 times, so 48 workshops by the end of this year. We are starting today, and I'm very excited. The first workshop, first masterclass, is called Break Free from Shame. Shame is not something you have. Shame is something you learn to do, and let me show you how to change it. Let us begin. So what to expect? We will talk about 5 insights about shame. We will go through shame resolution process. I will guide you through shame-free living self-hypnosis, which will then be a part of your bundle that you will receive. And I will offer you 2 more ways how to work with me apart from being on this masterclass or future masterclasses. Let us talk about my story very briefly. I have been raised up in shame. My environment was very much shame influenced, and there were 3 important environments where I learned shame. Number 1 was within my family. Number 2 was in my church. I was raised as a Catholic, and there was a lot of shaming there. And number 3 in school. So there were like these three different influences. The important thing to understand is you don't need to know why you carry shame and why you are being ashamed of specific behaviors or yourself. It's not important. What is important is to know why. And I'm just going to let Michelle in so she can now join. Very good. And let us continue. So it's important to know how, and we will be changing the how today together. I welcome Michelle inside, and I'm just going to continue. So what happened to me was that I lived in shame for 36 years without me knowing it. But as soon as I realized it, I started to dig deep, and I realized that it was indeed shame. I learned how to reframe shame inside. I learned how to release shame. And ever since, it's been 2 years, I've been working using this process that I'm going to show you today, helping others in one-on-one setup how to release their shame once and for all. And let us talk about 5 insights about shame. Number 1, shame is learned. Shame is not innate. You were not born with shame. Let me explain. When you were born, imagine a timeline of events. So you were born, and then you grow up, and now this is today. You were not born with shame. So if you feel shame today, and you didn't feel shame there must have been experience or a couple of them in between where you picked up shame. You were not born ashamed. You were not born embarrassed. You were not born with feeling less than others or inferior with others. You picked it up somewhere. You learned it. You learned to associate shame with a specific trigger. And today, going through the process that I will guide you through, you will learn how to release that shame, not only from that experience, not only from another experience, but from all the experiences that you associate with shame. What is also important, you not only learned how to associate shame with the trigger, but it is highly likely that you learn to see specific behaviors as shameful. And many times what happens is that people learn to see themselves as shameful. Right? So once again, this is not something that we are born with. There are specific emotions that you are born with, like fear, but shame is not one of them. And so shame is something that you picked up, and today I will guide you through the specific process, how you can let it go, how you can drop it. So that's number one. Number two, shame isn't who you are. Many times people believe that shame is this integral part of them. It's like, I'm feeling shame about something that I do. I feel shame about myself. So therefore, shame resides somewhere inside. Once again, shame isn't something you have. Shame is something you do. And shame is not a part of you. Shame is a mental strategy you do. You have an external trigger, or it could be internal trigger, some kind of mental thought, some kind of thought process. There is a mental strategy, step-by-step strategy, how you start to do the shameful feeling. And once you feel this feeling that is called shame, that's the experience of shame. But again, this is not something inside you. This is something that you do, and this is something that we can change today, and we will change today. So that's number two. Number three, shame causes distorted self-perception. Shame distorts how you see yourself. So typical shameful image that people usually hold in their minds is if they think about some kind of scenario, some kind of event, they consider themselves to be smaller than other people around them. Usually they see a still picture, so it's not like a movie, but it's a still picture. It's usually dark and gloomy. Often it is with very little colors. It's almost like the colors shaded from this image, or it's completely black and white. And the most important characteristic of this picture is that people usually see this judgmental expression on people's faces, especially eyes. The eyes. I wrote here all the eyes, because over the last 2 years, I worked with more than 20 people on resolving shame, and it has been the same experience for all of them. Whenever I asked them, what do you need to think of to start feeling shame, they thought of some kind of memory or some kind of event where they saw themselves smaller, where they saw these judgmental eyes or judgmental faces, where everything kind of stopped and everything was focused on the judgment around them, right? What often happens as well is that they see themselves in the picture distorted. So they are not only the same size, they are smaller, but they also have somewhat crooked posture or crooked their body in that image, right? And so if your mental environment that you carry with yourself wherever you go is populated by these distorted images, even just a couple of them, then you don't be surprised that your self-perception is distorted. You don't be surprised that you have low self-esteem. You don't be surprised that you have low self-worth if you are carrying shame all around, right? But once again, this is something that you learned to categorize. So within your subconscious mind, you learn to categorize specific experiences and you put them in some specific basket. And what we will do today is we will just take that basket and we'll move and transform this basket together. Number three, distorted self-perception. Number four, shame creates reverse causality. And this is something that is important to understand. Shame creates reverse causality of events. Many people believe that I do some behavior, some shameful behavior. And because I do this shameful behavior, I don't know, I'm smoking, I'm drinking, I'm doing some addiction, or, some thought processes, or I have some ideas that come to me. And that's why I feel shame. Well, actually, the fact is that it's quite the opposite. Because you were taught shame, because you were, for lack of better words, infected with shame, the shame became your emotional home. And because the shame became your emotional home, it is something that is almost addictive. It is something that your subconscious is seeking out. It's almost as if you had a checklist within your subconscious mind, and then every morning or every couple of days you wake up and your subconscious is like, I'm craving a hit. I'm craving a hit. What can we do? What can we do today? What can you think about, or what can we do? Something that I can feel a little bit of that, that nice, juicy, toxic shame. So emotional homes are something that is familiar to us. And that's why we return to them again and again and again and again. The brain always chooses what works, not what is, The brain doesn't always choose what works. It always chooses what is familiar. And so when something is familiar, you go there again and again and again, even if it sucks, like shame sucks. And so what we are going to do today is we are going to change these familiar images into a completely different vibration. And so there will be a different emotional home, emotional state attached to these images. And therefore, you will be drawn towards that familiarity, drawn towards a different vibration. Once again, reverse causality is not only about shame, it is about all emotions that become our emotional homes. So if it's joy, then you wake up every couple of days feeling like I want to get a hit of joy. And so this reverse causality is not something to change. What is important to change what your emotional home is. And if one of those emotional homes is shame, let us continue. Number 5, this is something that I wanna stop for a while here. Shame is something that stands in the way of manifestation. Now, if some of you might know David Hawkins's levels of consciousness, where he talks about all these different emotional states and different emotional vibration, where he placed shame all the way at the bottom. So now, this is not, when we talk about manifestation, many people believe, oh, this is like this woo-woo about, quantum energetics and so on. And then, they would be, let's say, less educated, because this is indeed true, and it is indeed quite important to understand. But even if we take away all this energetical vibration, you just got to understand that if you carry shame, you believe that you don't deserve good things. And if you believe that you don't deserve good things unconsciously, then it is hard to go after them. It is hard to motivate yourself to get them. It is hard to even have kind of faith or hope that you can get something like that. Another thing that is important is that you are then reactive to needs of others, right? Because others are bigger than you. You look at others, what they are doing, and kind of go with that instead of going with what you want. And indeed, it is quite difficult to know what you want. I will be talking about it very soon. But shame is almost like this distortive field that comes ahead in front of your eyes, and it's really hard to see through that and to see what is actually something that is for you, what is something that you want for yourself, because you have been implanted by all these different standards and values and boundaries of others. It's hard to see what is actually your boundary, what is your standard. So 5 reframes about shame, and let us talk about the most important part to understand, and that is, what isn't shame? Many people, just like I did for 36 years of my life, mistake shame with guilt. Now, guilt can be a powerful motivator. For those of you who know human design, guilt is one of 6 motivations, like 6 true motivations, and guilt is one of the most powerful motivators for humanity. And it can be indeed used in the positive way if one knows how to navigate it. But there are differences between guilt and shame, and especially for people who have their motivation guilt, like, for example, some people who join me for this masterclass. It's very important to know the distinction and to learn to navigate life where these are my boundaries and these are actually somebody else's. So let us talk about guilt. Guilt comes about as a consequence of violating my own personal standards. I go through life, I have my own boundaries, my own personal standards. I cross them and I feel guilty because I know that I crossed my own standards. What is the effect? The effect is that I crossed specific boundaries. I know specifically what I crossed. And I have, within shame, there is this mental representation of the harm that I caused to others. So it comes with this understanding, with this deep understanding of, oh, I crossed boundaries and I harmed other people. Because I crossed boundaries, I feel guilty. Or I harmed myself and I feel guilty. What are the symptoms of guilt? Is that there is desire to correct or amend wrongdoings. There is a guilt that is derived from actions or inactions. That is, the guilt is all about all about what I did or what I didn't do. And this is important distinction. I'll talk about shame. And with guilt, there is always, always, always focus on corrective actions. Whenever guilt arises, it is quite natural to be like, okay, what can I do? What can I do now to correct the situation? Or let us do that, right? But what is shame? Shame is something that I call a transferred guilt. Shame arises as a feeling of violating external standards. So some authority figure or multiple, just like it was in my case, they come to you and they say, you should feel guilty. In other words, you should feel ashamed because you crossed my standard, right? The problem is that often you are not really sure of what the standard was, right? Let us talk about the effects. Once you feel shame is this deep fear of rejection. It brings deep fear of rejection and abandonment. So it's almost like, I wanna go with this because if I don't go with it, I can lose my membership in the tribe, for lack of better words, right? Like this is like hardwired in us that we want to be part of tribe. And if tribe members come to us and they say, oh, you should feel ashamed, you should not do this one, then it is almost like this, it kind of switches on. And we're like, okay, yeah, I will take this shame, even though I don't know why I did it, right? There is a big confusion often about the specificity of the standard, right? The message is like, oh, you should feel shame, or shame on you, or, I would feel ashamed if I did that. Many times leave us like, okay, I feel shame, but I really don't know why. Like, I don't know exactly the standard. And now, just like I was saying previously, once you take on transferred guilt from others, once you start to kind of carry the shame, it's almost like this glass through which it's really difficult to see. And it's really difficult to see your own standards, because even these standards that you feel bad about, and actually you are feeling bad about yourself, are not really clear. And so you are feeling bad about something that is not really clear, then it kind of generalizes and you start to be not clear about other standards. It's important to let go of shame. It's important to clarify the standard. And once this happens, then and only then can you start to really be clear about what your standards are, what your boundaries are, and how to go about reaching them. Let us talk about symptoms. Symptoms of shame are disconnection from others, feeling of inferiority. So you are inferior to others, you are feeling less than others. And shame often is derived from a sense of self. So it's not derived from action or inaction, but often once this message has been repeated, people start to derive shame from themselves. It's like, I don't even know what I did. I just feel ashamed of myself, just like I did, right? The focus is not on the corrective actions, like with guilt. It's like, I feel guilt, let's correct it. The focus is on judgment. It's like, I feel shame, or I feel so bad about myself. It's like this downward spiral, right? And one last thing to say about how do you do shame, and I'm just going to repeat a couple of things. There are two things connected with regards to shame. Number one, cognitive experience is often like 95% it's the same for all of us, how we do shame. There is an image, often there is an image that we connect with shame. It's like some kind of visualization that involves being judged by larger, still disapproving figures. There are these eyes, there are these faces. In the image, we can be distorted. The images are usually dark and still, so there is no movement in them. And this contributes to the emotional heaviness. So, I mean, here is the thing. If you go to the cinema and you end up watching a horror, don't be surprised that you are afraid. Like it's kind of obvious, right? If you mentally rehearse again and again mental images from the past where you see yourself smaller, everybody's judging you, everything is stopped, and you can see these judgmental figures, and everything is dark and gloomy and stopped, don't be surprised that you feel bad about the person being judged in that situation, right? But you can transform it, and we are almost there. Lack of clarity is the second thing. That is inability to describe specific standard. Shame often comes with I don't know. I feel shame, but I really don't know why. I just know that I feel shame because they told me, right? They told me around us. Let us begin. So let us talk about how I work with others and what is the thing that I do with people. I work on a 4-month program, and as I started this on the slide 17. Okay, so as I started this, you can notice that there is 1 out of 16. This is the first out of 16 workshops, first 16 masterclasses that I will be doing. And these 16 masterclasses will guide you through the complete program that I call the Project U. There are 2 ways how you can do it with me, or actually 3 ways. One is the masterclass. Second is something that I call the fresh start, and the third is the Project U. And let me tell you about how it works. What I do with my clients is quite simple, and that is we are building an emotional house. We are building your own house based on how you want to live in it. We are building the foundation, we are cleaning up, and we are renovating. There are 3 steps to this process. Number 1, we are focusing on the foundation, which are emotional homes. There are different emotional homes that many people carry, but overall, there are 4 of them, and out of these 4, every single human carries at least one of them, if not more. Number 1 is shame, which we focused on today. Number 2 is grief, which I'm focusing on the next masterclass. Number 3 is betrayal. And number 4 is loneliness. These 4 are predominant, especially loneliness after COVID kind of came into the global consciousness. And so these 4 emotional homes are something that we will be focusing on these masterclasses. And it is the first foundation, building the foundation of the house. If you build your house on shaky foundation, you don't be surprised that the house is shaky in general. Now, the foundation are always emotional homes. To de-energize and replace these emotional homes with something else, you replace shame with courage and confidence. You replace grief with gratitude. You replace betrayal with feeling of self-trust. You replace loneliness with feeling of connection. This is what we do in the first 4 weeks. Then, as the foundation is built, we are doing something that I call the cleanup. And this is all about relationships. Now, there are 4 important relationships that each of us find ourselves in, and that's why it takes 4 weeks. Number 1, it's a relationship towards yourself. That is the relationship that you have towards how you see yourself, what are the labels that you carry, what are the identities that you carry. So how you see yourself. Number 2, the relationship with others, your parents, your co-workers, your partner, your children. All the relationships that you have with others are something that we focus on, and we are cleaning up this relationship, finishing something that used to be unfinished business. Number 3, relationship with energy. We are using human design, which is a very important tool for self-empowerment and to understand how you are here to make decisions and to understand how you are here to motivate yourself, because this is very specific and that's why we focus on it. And last one is relationship with resources. It's either you live in the mindset of abundance or you live in scarcity. And if you live in one or the other, you will see it on different type of resources, like creative energy, like sexual energy, like money, like physical energy, like time, right? So these are the different resources that we are using, and some people are running out of time, running out of money, and some people have abundance. Why is that? Well, it is because they are unconsciously categorizing resources differently. That's why we focus on it with the cleanup. And then once this is done, the next 8 weeks, we focus on wheel of life, on 8 different areas of your life, starting with health, going through environment, through career, going through finances, going through romantic relationships and family, going through health, fun, recreation, 8 different areas that we go step by step, week by week to optimize. What we are doing here is in 16 weeks, we start from the ground and we build it all the way up. and after 16 weeks, you are receiving the keys from your own home built exactly on the emotional states that you want to experience, home built on the relationships that you want to experience and the dynamics that you want to experience, and home built on the areas and kind of different rooms of the house, how you want to have them, not how it was expected from others. That's why we start with shame, because shame is usually the thing that makes us very unclear about what it is that we want. Now,